Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Atp Live Monday. I am Gbemi Celebrate. I'm your anchor for today, and I hope you've had a lovely Monday. Welcome. Let's just share the video for those joining on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. You're all welcome. So the first thing we're going to do is to share the video, and I will do the same. So let's share. Let's invite everyone who needs to be here. Okay, I'm trying to find my video. Okay. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. ATP Live Monday is a program where you get to ask any question that you may have about the health of your children. We'll try and answer you um, in the next 1 hour. So thank you so much for joining us. So if you have any question, you can start to post your questions directly in the next 1 hour. Sorry. You can start to post your question directly under the video, and then we'll try and answer them. But I'm also trying to share the video so that people can see us and they can join us. Um, so thank you so much. Welcome to ATP Live Monday. I'm just trying to share the video to our various groups so that people can see and they can hear. Okay, and let me also share it and pin it as well. Welcome. We have so much to talk about today, but we will take them one by one. Okay. Okay, and then let me share it to our groups again. Okay, I think I'm done with all the sharing and all the pin. Let me do the pinning now. We also have to pin. Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, in our groups. Okay, so I think I'm done with all the sharing and all the pinning, and it's just to make sure. Let me just go to ATP Live. Let me just pin post. Okay. All right. I think I've done all the sharing now. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to ATP Live Monday. This program is brought to you by Atp Pediatrician's Foundation. Atp Pediatrician's Foundation is a charity that is completely devoted to the health and the welfare of all children globally, but most especially in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Nigeria, where a lot of our children are still dying from preventable and treatable conditions. So we do a lot of health education, health information online, and beyond what we do online, we also do a lot of community medical outreaches in communities that don't really have access to pediatricians, and also in schools, in churches. We do a lot of community outreaches over the years. We've been doing this for the past 10 years. So ATP Live Monday is one of our programs where you get to actually have a live opportunity to ask your question directly and get your answer straight away from the pediatrician. But remember that if you still have any question after the 60 minutes of the live ATP Live, you can always go to our Facebook groups and ask your questions there. We have about 4 of them. We have the Ask the Pediatrician, where you can ask any question that has to do with the health of your children. We also have the ATP Family, and then we also have the where you ask questions for adults, and then we also have ATP Still a Mom, for supporting those who may have encounter loss of children and things like that. And then we also have the first time moms group. So thank you so much everyone for joining. Feel free to drop your questions under the comments if you're watching on the page or on Instagram or on YouTube. You can just drop your question directly under the video and I will see them. But if you're watching our Facebook group, and it's okay for you to watch directly, but if you have questions, you need to make sure you click on the video itself so that it will take you to the video and you can drop your questions directly under the video, because that's the only way I'll be able to see it. So thank you so much, everyone. um let me just check Instagram, people, because your questions tend to roll off. So I need to be checking intermittently. So feel free to drop your questions and I will answer them. Last week, I have so many questions, so I wasn't able to talk much about immunization, which is one of the ongoing issues. Many of us have been visited in our churches. We have received letters from the schools about the ongoing integrated measles rubella vaccine campaign. And many of you have been asking a lot of questions about it, and we've already shared a lot of information as well. And I really want to appreciate those of you who have given consent and you've allowed your children to be immunized. This is very, very good and very important, because we are protecting our children against measles and rubella. These two conditions, especially the measles, they can be very dangerous and they can lead to deaths of children. So this is why we immunize the children against measles rubella. And there have been a lot of confusion, and people have asked, oh, my children have been immunized before, why do I need to take it again, and all that. So last week I was actually going to talk about the difference between routine immunization and what we call supplementary or immunization campaign. So we'll talk about that. I'm waiting to answer questions, but feel so let's talk about routine immunization in So that is what we call immunization. However, we also have what we call supplementary immunization. This is something that we give the children above the routine one. In other words, this is now beyond just the routine immunization. It's like an extra. And we tend to okay. I hope it's better now. I think it's better. I can see myself and my videos seem to be moving. All right. So sorry for the break. I just have to refresh my internet. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Sorry for that short break in transmission. So welcome to ATP Live. If you have any question, feel free to drop your question under this video and I will answer them. I was just trying to talk to us about routine and what we call uh, immunization campaigns or supplementary immunization. So let's just continue. So routine immunization. So immunization is when we give children, and this vaccine is to protect the children against certain conditions. We don't want children to have the diseases. So, and these are what we call killer diseases, and we have vaccines. So, vaccines are like modified version of the germ or a product of that germ. But what we do is that when we give it to children, it's the body sees it as if the child is actually being exposed to the real thing, and it generates a lot of antibodies and store it ready. So it will protect that child when the child is not actually have that particular disease or infection, and that means they will be protected and they will not have the infection. That is the idea behind immunization. And immunization is one of our most successful public strategies. It's one of the most successful a lot of children are walking today because we have the polio vaccine. In fact, we are actually at the brink of completely eliminating polio, just like we've eliminated smallpox. These days, people don't hear of smallpox, but smallpox used to be a very terrible disease in those days. But through vaccines, we've been able to completely eliminate it. And we are now getting to the point of eliminating polio as well through the polio vaccine. So immunizations are quite important. So every country look at what are those diseases that we tend to have in our country that can kill our children, and how do we protect our children. So we always have immunization schedule, and each country have their own schedule or schedule, and that's depends on what are those conditions that are really important in those countries. So, for example, in Nigeria, tuberculosis is something very rampant. A lot of children, a lot of adults have tuberculosis. So that is why the very first immunization we give in Nigeria is BCG. But it differs from other countries. There are some places like maybe Europe or even US where tuberculosis is not a big deal for them. So they don't even have BCG, in their schedule of immunizations, routine immunization that they give to their children. So, for example, in UK, people actually have to request that they want to give their children BCG vaccine because maybe they are going to be taking the children to their own country where tuberculosis is something endemic. But the average child in the UK who is going to be living in the UK does not need the BCG vaccine because they are very unlikely to be exposed to tuberculosis. So I just want us to understand that each country have to determine what is their own routine immunization schedule. So we also have the Nigerian one, we call it the NPI, Nigerian Program on Immunization. Every country have its own. There are some similarities. Most of us will give measles, most of us will give the pneumococcal vaccine. Measles, rubella, they are common almost across all, but there are some diseases that are not an issue for most of the countries, so they may not be giving that in their own case. So I just want us to understand that. However, sometimes we have what we call outbreaks. There'll be times that there'll be outbreak of diseases. So like measles we tend to have what we call an epidemic. Like there'll be so many more cases of those conditions in a certain period. So we said there's an epidemic of measles. Remember, we've had epidemic of cholera. We've just come out of the pandemic of coronavirus. So when a disease that normally can happen is happening so much, that so many people are being affected at the same time, we refer to that as an epidemic. Now, when we are having situation of an epidemic, either it has started or is about to start, then we want to make sure that we protect the children more aggressively. We want to make sure many children are immunized at the same time. That is when we do what we call supplementary immunization or immunization campaign. So that is the difference. So in routine immunization, we expect everybody to just come, get their vaccines and be protected. But when we are having a situation on our hand, or we're about to have a situation on our hand, then we will usually uh, do more work in terms of getting almost all the children who are likely going to have that disease. If they are not protected, we will get them all immunized at the same time. There's a concept we call herd immunity, so that when you have so many children immunized at the same time, it's very unlikely for you to have the epidemic, or it can also break the ongoing one if it has started. So that is what we do during supplementary immunization or immunization campaigns. So even though your child has had the routine immunization, the goal in routine immunization is different from the goal during supplementary immunization. During supplementary immunization, we are trying to deal with a situation happening or about to happen. So even the children that have taken the routine immunization must still be given the extra doses of immunization during the supplementary or immunization campaigns. Okay, so that is the difference between the two. So if your child has been immunized routinely, that does not stop them from still taking the supplementary vaccines. Number one, some children who have been immunized before, immunity also wane with time. So even though they were protected to some degree before, but over time that degree of protection is getting smaller and smaller. And now we're going to have an epidemic. So we want them to be, we want that immunity to come up. We want to booster it. So that is what we're trying to do. And also children that have never been immunized before, that's an opportunity for us to bring everybody up to speed. So the fact that your child has taken the routine immunization does not stop them from taking the supplementary vaccine. And a lot of mothers kept asking about whether I've seen a situation where maybe the child has gone to the school and they've given the vaccine, and then they came to church again and they gave it again, and some babies are getting 2 or 3 doses, and parents are a little bit worried that would that cause any harm or any issues for the children. No, actually taking extra doses of vaccination does not harm the children. So I want the parents to relax about that. So taking extra doses of immunization, it does not harm your children at all. It's at worst, it's just a waste of vaccine. But in terms of harming the children, no. So it's better to actually make sure that the children take the vaccine than to assume they've taken it and they didn't take it at all. So it is important that we ensure that the children take the vaccines. And usually for supplementary immunization, we tend to cover certain age. So this current one that we're giving now in Nigeria, the measles rubella, we're covering from 9 months to 14 years. So because most of our children were not given rubella vaccines before, most of the children didn't have rubella vaccines. So we really want to make sure. So for most children, this is the first time they'll be getting rubella vaccine. Though some mothers, I know, some parents paid for the MMR before, and because MMR is not yet part of the Nigerian program on immunization. We have measles, we have measles 1, we have measles 2. So MMR is not yet part of our routine immunization, but it's available. So some people may have, especially those who take the immunizations in private hospitals, they may have paid for it. So that is fine, but you should still take the MR supplementary immunization, even though your children have taken MMR before. So I hope that has given us some clarity. And a mother was asking the other day that, okay, our baby is 9 months old. So the baby is going to take the measles at 9 months. And so mom was not asking whether she should still take the MR vaccine. And I really was happy with that question because it's important. Now, you need to understand that the immunization we give at 9 months, which is a routine one, is still different from this MR. So the only thing that is actually the same is that both of them have measles. So at 9 months, we will give the child measles, yellow fever vaccine, and the meningitis meningococcal type A vaccine. So there are 3 immunizations at 9 months. So the fact that you have now gone to take the MR that they give around does not mean you should not go for your routine 9 months immunization, because that routine 9 month immunization adds other vaccines that your child will take, the yellow fever and the meningitis vaccine. Now, I will expect that the health center, instead of giving the child the measles, they should just give the measles rubella vaccine if they have it with them. But if they don't have it, then it's better you take the normal three vaccines that your child should take at 9 months, and then still go and take the MR, the one that we're given as part of the campaign. But I'm assuming that most of the health center, because most of this campaign is not happening at the same time in every place. So some places have it, some places do not have it yet. So which is why I don't want to give a blanket answer that they should have it. If they have it, so instead of giving the measles, they should give the measles rubella and then the other vaccines for 9 months. But if they don't have the MR vaccine, they should still give you the measles, the rubella, and the yellow fever vaccine. And then you can now go ahead. When the MR is available, you can still take that one in your location. So I hope that is helpful. So that is just addressing all the issues that we've had about the routine immunization and the supplementary immunization. But if you have any question about it still, feel free to ask. And if you have any other questions, feel free to ask as well. So I've not seen any question. So I believe that many people have already read the article we put out, and many people may have read the apart from the article, they may also have read some of the short videos that we did, and even the uh, national program on immunization. I think they also have put up some posts as well. So I guess many people have a lot of answers already to the question. A lot of people have asked us so many questions on ATP. So I have a feeling we've answered many of them already. So, but if you still have any question, feel free to drop it now, or you can always come and ask us later. But I can't seem to see any question on Instagram or Facebook. So I'm assuming, hopefully, correctly, that everybody have that clarity now when it comes to routine immunization, supplementary immunization, and you should not be confused. Now, I also saw a lot of mothers trying to say, oh, so you said the children are having fever after taking the vaccine. No, I don't want to give my child. I think one parent also talked about the fact that their child was shivering or shaking after the immunization. Now, let me just quickly address that. Immunization all have side effects. If there's actually virtually no drug that doesn't have side effects. Almost all drugs have side effects. So we are not surprised by the side effect. We expect some of the side effects. The most common side effects in immunization is the fever. So children can have fever. There's nothing absolutely to worry about when children have fever following immunization. So what we need to do is to give our children paracetamol. Some children will have the vaccine and not have any fever, and that is perfectly fine. Some children will have fever, and that is also perfectly fine. So if the child has fever, let's give paracetamol. Some children's fever may come in form of what look like a rigor, like as if you're having malaria and you're shaking. And I think that is what the other parent was trying to say. And though I was happy that he told us that after a short while, the shaking stopped and the child was fine and it hasn't happened again. So it's also a form of a fever, and it is okay to give paracetamol. And usually, most of the time, the children will be fine. Most of the fever that happens with immunization, they are not so very high fever. They're actually very low grade temperature. They respond very well to paracetamol. 2-3 days, the children are okay. Now, but if your child is having very high fever, because sometimes when we're giving immunization, we're not testing the children, we're just giving everybody immunization. Sometimes some children already have an underlying illness. They are already going to be sick. Even if they don't take the immunization, they are going to be sick. But parents do not know. So it's just like, so a child who is about to be sick now take immunization, they now have high fever, and parents begin to think, oh, it is the immunization. Sometimes it is not the immunization. Sometimes the children were already incubating that illness. Maybe it's a malaria, another infection. So the immunization was just a coincidence. So in that case, usually if a child is going to be healed, the fever they will have tend to be very high. They tend to have very, very high fever, 39-40. So if a child is having 39-40 fever, I would think that is more likely an illness and not immunization fever. So just take the children to the hospital for proper evaluation and treatment. So just okay. Yes, Adenike Sonny, welcome. My first question finally. Yes, I'm happy you asked this question, because this is another question people tend to ask a lot. Like, some children are already sick anyway, and now they are going for the immunization. Okay, let me, before I even answer Adenike's question, let me say that some illness and are not contraindicated let me say it properly. Certain illness in which the child is already on treatment for does not mean the child cannot take immunization. Okay. If a child, usually the way I always say it in a way that parents will remember is that if a child is not sick enough to be in the hospital, then that child is not sick enough not to take vaccine. I think that is a very easy one. Loretta Mola, you asking a question? Please, can you ask the question again because I can't see the beginning of your question. You start with birth weights and current weights. What was the question before? But feel free to repost it so that I can answer it. All right. Okay. So let me go back to Adenike's question. If a child is not sick enough to be on hospital admission, to be on treatment, then that child is not sick enough not to take vaccine. So it is okay for children to take vaccine. So, and that also answered Denike's question. A child who is taking antibiotics, a child who is taking, who is being dewormed, or any other medication, they can still take their vaccines. So, okay. So, if a child has been sick, was already being treated with anti-malaria, the fever is already down, they can take their vaccine. The child is on antibiotics, they can take their vaccine. The child is on anti-malaria, they can take their vaccines. Now, but if a child is very sick and the child is still having very high fever, 39, 40, we will not give immunization. If a child is on admission in the hospital, we will not likely give immunization. But a child who is already at home, who is eating, who is running up and down, even though they are being treated for malaria or with antibiotics, they can take the immunization. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of parents mix immunization because of these minor issues, and that is what we call mixed opportunities. We call them mixed opportunities. Children being sick who are not very ill enough to be on hospital admission, they should still be given vaccine. Unfortunately, some of our health centers, so when mothers even go there, some of our health workers that are not well informed, sometimes they don't give the children vaccines. I've seen mothers told me they didn't give my children vaccines because they said the weight is not this, the weight is not that. That is not true. That is wrong information, from a health worker that is not well trained. Any child who is not in hospital, even though they were preterm, even though they are now weighing 2 kilos, even though they are now weighing 1.8 kilos, they should still be given their vaccines. There is no contraindication to immunization at that age. I've seen people say, oh, the child has jaundice, so we won't give vaccine. Again, that is also wrong misinformation. There's no contraindication to taking immunization in a child who has jaundice. Of course, for me, jaundice is even more of an emergency than the immunization, but that does not still stop the child from taking the immunization. It's not going to make the jaundice worse in any particular way. So I hope that is clear. Loretta, what is your question? Please ask your question again. I'm only saying wait, so I can't understand what the question is. Then, so while we're still on immunization, I've talked about if a child has fever, we can give them paracetamol. Children can have like pain around the immunization site. That is also okay. Just apply some ice packs. If there's a little bit of swelling, don't rub, don't massage, don't apply any cream, anything, just ice pack, and the swelling should go down within a couple of days as well. It is when we're rubbing and we're massaging that we actually can introduce germs uh, into the injection site, and that can become a major infection, and the child can now have what we call cellulitis, like infection of the area. It can even become like it can become an abscess in which you will not have pulse inside. So we should avoid that. So today I think I've talked a lot about immunization today. So another thing we need to realize, because I've seen a lot of mothers come to ask again, my child, when I was giving my children immunization, it ended at 9 months, but now there are so many other vaccines that have been added. Yes, because we are always advocating. There are many more vaccines than what the government is giving us, or than what the government is paying. We the immunization schedule is not static. I remember when we started ATP, rotavirus was not yet part of our schedule then. Even pneumococcal vaccine, people were paying for it then. They were paying for what do we call it, Prevena and all the rest of them. But now everybody is getting it for free. That time, even meningococcal vaccine was available, but it's not something the government was paying for, so you pay for it yourself. So immunization schedule keeps expanding every year. Then we don't even have HPV vaccine, the one we give at 9 years now. So the thing is always increasing, and we're still going to ask for more and more. Rota is also now part of it. It wasn't part of it before. So you can always go and ask them at the health center. If you think, oh, there are some vaccines that if your child is certain age, it's not an issue anymore, so they don't need to take it anymore. But there are certain vaccines that your children can always take, irrespective of their age. So things like meningitis vaccine, even adults can have meningitis. So if your child didn't get it when they were 9 months old, you can still get it. HPV is from 9 to 14 years, so your children can still take those ones. But there are things like Rota, for example. Rota is something we want children to have before the age of 1 year. After the age of 1 year, Rota is no longer an issue. The pneumococcal vaccine, we want children to have it before the age of 5 years. After 5 years, we are not really worried so much about the pneumococcal vaccine. But things like hepatitis B, for example, people can still be exposed. Even those of us who are health workers, even as adults, we still take booster doses of hepatitis B because we can be exposed to it. It's an occupational risk. If we are exposed to blood, we're exposed to blood fluid. So we still take it even as adults. Things like even HPV vaccine, mothers can still take it because it will protect you against cervical cancers and things like that. So there are vaccines that you can still go and take even though your children are older and they didn't take it when they were younger. But there are certain vaccines that are no longer relevant. Things like tetanus, even mothers who take tetanus toxoid, we give you 5 doses as well, even in your pregnancy, to protect the children against neonatal tetanus. So there are variety when it comes to vaccines. So it's not only for children. Of course, I'm a pediatrician, so definitely I'm talking for the children. But there are vaccines that even adults can take, like the hepatitis B, like the HPV vaccine and all that, even tetanus. But there are vaccines that older children can say take as well. So I hope I've really, really addressed the issue of immunization. We'll still talk about it during immunization week because immunization is so important. It's a very, very important thing. Excuse me, unfortunately, we are now in the era of anti-vaxxers, people who are preaching against vaccines and trying to discourage people from taking vaccines and all that. And that is why even in places like Europe and United States, where they don't tend to have all these infectious diseases again because all the children are fully immunized and all that. But because we're now in the era where people in Europe and America are feeling like they don't need to take these vaccines again, now we're beginning to have outbreaks of measles. Right now, I think in Texas and in some, even in UK recently, we had outbreaks of measles. They even have to tell everybody to go and get immunized with measles, even the health workers. So because people think we don't need to take the vaccines, but sometimes if you don't take those vaccines, there's what we call herd immunity. Those who are taking the vaccines will be protecting those who have not taken. But it gets to a point where the critical herd immunity also drops, and then we'll start having outbreaks. So you can verify this information online. You can just search for it, and you'll find that even in advanced countries where they don't tend to have infectious diseases before, now they're beginning to have it because people are refusing to take their children for immunization. And they even have all the aids, they have all the resources and everything to deal with all these emergencies. We in Africa, we don't even have half of those resources. So we can't afford to joke around and say, okay, yes, what if my child, please, prevention is still a mandate for us. It's better to avoid it than to be thinking we're going to deal with it when it happens, because we may not be able to manage it as appropriate. Okay, I think Major Evans asked a question. Okay, yes, you asked about malaria vaccine. Yes, thank you. So malaria vaccine is relatively new. It's still being introduced. Now, I was going to say that I was already mentioned the fact that the vaccines we are adding more and more every year. So usually when we are introducing new vaccines, we don't give everybody at the same time. We start with certain states. There was a time that rota was being given, I think in certain, maybe in the east or certain parts of Nigeria, but now everybody's getting rota. So the same thing with malaria vaccine. Malaria vaccine is not yet fully on the national program. It's not yet completely all over the place, but it's already been introduced in certain states. So we usually do things in what we call pilots or phases. So we give certain people, we study the children, is it effective? Are they having any serious side effects? So we do all those kind of uh, what we see, part of what we call clinical trials. We are still making sure that it is safe, even though they've done all the tests in the lab, they've done. But when you introduce it into the market, even to the people as well, you still need to do some surveillance. You still need to be sure it's okay before you now give it to the entire country. That is how we normally do things. We don't introduce everything across board. We always do it in a gradual rollout and phases. So malaria vaccine is still in that phase, Major Ever. So I don't know whether where you live. I know you mentioned Abuja the last time. I don't know whether they've started giving malaria vaccine. I don't know whether it's one of the states. I mean, one of the it's FCC anyway. It's one of the places where we have introduced malaria vaccine. I may need to verify, but I know that it's not yet routine, so everybody is not going to get malaria vaccine. That's number one. Number two, I think the age group for malaria vaccine in Nigeria is the on the one we're focusing on the babies, so the infants. They are the one being prioritized because they are the one that tend to have what we call severe malaria. Of course, I guess we're going to prioritize children with sickle cell anemia. We're going to prioritize maybe pregnant women down the line. But I think this initial phase of it, they are not giving adults. Okay, apologies for that, and they are only giving the babies less than 1 year, and it is not yet even available all over the country. But when it is available over the country, it will be in our immunization schedule and everybody will be able to get it. So for now, I guess if you have to give to a child who is not under one and outside of the locations where we have it, you may have to pay for it, or we may have to make an exception. I have a feeling that we're going to start making exception for children with sickle cell anemia, because we know children with sickle cell anemia is they are prone to malaria, and it's one of the things that always initiate the crisis. So most likely we'll start giving them, because even like for the pneumococcal vaccine, when we started pneumococcal vaccine, we prioritize the children with sickle cell anemia. We already started giving them long time before we start giving everybody for free. So I have a feeling we may likely prioritize them as well, but I don't think we have gotten to that stage yet. I don't think so. They have not started in Abuja. Okay, good. Yeah, but you can find out where they've started, and you may want to ask whether you can pay for it yourself. I'm sure people in private sector can get it for you if you are ready to pay. I don't know whether it's be very expensive though, but if you are a little bit patient, we will get to the point. Currently, we still have other options against malaria. Maybe that's why we are not rushing with the malaria vaccine. We still have anti-malaria. We still have malaria prophylaxis. So we give like things like fancy that we give proguanil to children with sickle cell anemia. So we're doing what we call chemoprophylaxis. We're giving drugs. We also do seasonal chemoprophylaxis. So we still have options when it comes to malaria. So the vaccine is like our, next option, but at least for malaria, we still have 2, 3 options to prevent it before we get to the vaccine. But I think the government just wants to be sure it's effective. So when we're introducing vaccine, we are looking for all the children that were given these vaccines, how many of them are having malaria, or are they no longer having malaria, and all that. So then we will now, if it is effective, that is when we're going to give it to everybody. I always want parents to understand that vaccines are expensive. The fact that the government is giving us for free does not make it cheap. They are very expensive. So, and the government is buying for everybody. So the little we can do is to make sure that um we take the vaccines when they ask us to take them. All right. Lorita, I've already asked that you should repeat your question because I didn't see your question. The only thing we can see is you putting the birth weight is 2.4, the current weight is 21.5, but the question before that, I didn't see it. I don't know whether I didn't look at it when it was there, but I can't see it. So if you can just repost the question again, I'm happy to answer it. All right. So feel free so we've talked a lot about vaccines today. I hope everybody has been encouraged to go and make sure their children are fully immunized. And if you have mixed vaccines, final thing to say, you can always go and get them again. You can always catch up on immunization. Like I said, some of them we may tell you not to bother anymore, but there are still some that will give you catch up. All right. Chineye say, which malaria prophylaxis can I give a baby of 7 months? Now, you don't need to give your baby you don't need to give your baby malaria prophylaxis. We don't recommend that you should give babies to prevent malaria. Actually, in Africa, in Nigeria, we want our children to actually have malaria. Yeah, I know it sounds contradictory because we want them to develop a little bit of immunity against malaria for now, because vaccines would have been better, because when we give vaccines, the vaccines is different from the drugs. The drug will stop the child from having malaria. But the challenge with that is that when the children now have the malaria, they tend to have very severe malaria because their body has not developed any form of uh, what we call immunity against malaria. So most of us in Nigeria, we have what we call semi-immunity against malaria. That is why some of us, you have malaria and you are still going to the work. You have malaria, you are still working, you are still going to school and all that, because even though you have malaria, you are not having a very severe form of malaria. You are partially immune already against malaria. It doesn't stop you from having malaria, but when you have the malaria, you have the simple uncomplicated malaria. Now, if somebody from US or UK comes to Nigeria and they have malaria, they are going to have what we call severe malaria, because they don't have any form of immunity against malaria before. So usually when they come to Nigeria, they need to take drugs throughout so that they don't have the malaria at all. But most Nigerians, that's why when people say, oh, they test my blood, it's always one malaria positive. That doesn't mean you have malaria, because most of us will have one positive malaria, but because our body is already used to having malaria and you already have a lot of what we call antibodies, you already have a lot of protection. But when you start taking malaria prophylaxis, you will not have malaria, you will be protected. But the day you have especially for children, the day they have the malaria, is going to be severe malaria. So that's when they start having things like cerebral malaria, they go into kidney failure and all that. We don't want children to have that. Before, we used to do that. I remember when I was growing up, we used to take Sunday medicine. Our parents would always give us Sunday medicine because they want to protect us against malaria. We actually found that it is counterproductive. So research has shown that it's actually better for the children to actually have the malaria, and then we treat it, and then they have more malaria, we treat it. But the more malaria they have, the better their body become responding to malaria. So they are partially immune. So even whenever they have malaria, they will have the simple malaria, not the severe malaria. But if you don't allow them to be exposed at all, this is also what happens with boarding school children. When they have malaria, they tend to have severe malaria because some of them are, they kind of get overprotected as well. So we're trying not to do that. But hopefully, if we start giving vaccine, the difference between vaccine and drugs, that vaccine we actually get the person to produce antibodies, so they will actually have like some protection, either full or partial immunity against malaria. We don't know what level it is going to be right now. We're still doing a lot of research on the malaria vaccine, but so no, don't give your children anti-malaria drugs to protect them. Some mothers will say they are treating their children for malaria every 3 months. No, it's a very bad thing to do. So stop it. Don't leave children alone. If they have malaria, then you treat them. That is what we recommend now. The only people that are exempted from what I've just said now are people that we already know they are at risk of severe malaria. So pregnant women, we treat them for malaria every month during pregnancy. Sickle cell anemia, we give them malaria drug every day, progranils every day for the rest of their life. So there are certain people that we give prophylaxis because we know that if they have malaria, they're going to be very sick, and they're going to have severe malaria and they can die from it. But otherwise, other people, everybody else who doesn't have, you're not pregnant, you're not a sickler, you don't have any other health issues that warrants that kind of protection, you should not take medication to protect yourself against malaria. That is our current recommendation. Okay, Larissa Mal, say your 5-year-old is complaining of stomach pain, and shortly after that, he poo on his body before he could get to toilet, and the poo was watery. What should you do? Oh, if the poo is watery, in most likely maybe he wants to have diarrhea, and sometimes I don't know what he ate before then. Did he have like did he eat something that is contaminated? He could have food poisoning, he could have infection, anything could happen. It's just that because it's a watery explosive stool, that's why he couldn't hold it before he gets to toilet. And sometimes children also are sometimes they could be very naughty. In other words, they feel the urge to go to toilet, but they are watching TV or they are playing one game and they don't want to get up until the last minute, and then they are now, of course, if it's something watery, it's difficult to hold it compared to if it is, and the child has already been complaining of pain. So if it's complaining of abdominal pain, that means already knowing that he has the urge to go to the toilet, but maybe didn't go on time, but something must have happened. So he may have what we call gastroenteritis, like an infection, maybe from the water that is contaminated, food that is contaminated, even food poisoning. We don't know which one it is in this case. But usually for a child who is having watery stool, diarrhea, the first thing to do is to make sure you rehydrate them. So give ORS and oral zinc. That is the treatment. And then if he's still having pain, you can give paracetamol. But if it continues, then that's when you want to go to the hospital. Also check that there's no blood in the stool, because if there's blood in the stool, then we worry about dysentery. That will require antibiotics. But if it's just normal watery stool, diarrhea, whether it's from diarrhea, from gastroenteritis, food poisoning, or whatever, that doesn't require any antibiotics. The most important thing is to um treat the child, rehydrate the child, give ORS and oral zinc as well. Then also pay attention to hygiene, hand washing, make sure the water they are drinking is safe, is boiled water, make sure the food is prepared fresh. Ask the child what did they eat. Sometimes children, they eat things from their friends. If you are the mother, sometimes in Nigeria we pack food for our children to school, and we pack hot food inside coolers and we send them to school with it. It's actually not a good idea, because most of those hot food in a hot warmer is a recipe for bacteria to germinate. What we actually recommend is that the school should feed the children, give them fresh food, right? Not the one they've stored. If I thought we're going to be packing food, then it's actually maybe easier to pack things like sandwiches, cold food, rather than the hot food. And some of us would have cooked that food since 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. and pack it, and then children take it to school. They're eating it around 12 or 1. Some of those food already become contaminated with germs. So these are issues that we don't always remember. So that's why some schools always say it's either you pack sandwiches, those ones don't tend to get easily contaminated, or the school provide the children their hot meals so it is fresh, and that is ideal thing. So these are some of the little things which, or some of them, children get their food contaminated, or they eat from other people's food, that is maybe not properly warmed again, contaminated. So you just have to ask those questions to know which one. But irrespective of the cause, the most important thing is that the child is rehydrated, ORS or a zinc. If the child has fever, the child is sick, you have to take the child to the hospital, and then they will take it from, investigate, do blood tests, and deal with it. All right. I hope that's helpful. All right. The final thing before I leave, I know my time is up. On the 4th of February every year is the World uh, Zero Day to, which is 0 day, zero tolerance to female genital mutilation, FGM. So we tend to talk about FGM. We live in a part of the world where a lot of mothers and a lot of our uh, grandparents, and they still believe in the fact that female children should be circumcised. And we're saying no, you shouldn't need to circumcise your female children. It's very unfortunate that even some educated mothers believe in this, and some say we will just get the earth worker to circumcise. No, it's wrong. Even for the earth workers to circumcise anybody, it's a criminal thing to do. Okay, there is absolutely no benefit to circumcising our girls. Okay, some say, oh, it's going to protect them against promiscuity, it's going to do this. It doesn't do all that at all. Okay, rather it put the children at risk of what we call short-term risk and long-term risk. Short-term risks, even infection, sometimes it's the same blade that they use for everybody. Infection is rampant. Children are exposed to all the germs that can get into blood, things like hepatitis, things like HIV, and all that kind of infection. So that is in the immediate time. Children can bleed, and they can bleed so much and lose a lot of blood. They can be exposed to tetanus. Tetanus is a very dangerous and it's a killer disease. These are things that can happen in the short term. Then the long term, because the cause, number one, is it makes childbirth very difficult for those children. Number one, they don't even enjoy sexual intercourse, because most of the area where girls feel pleasure is the clitoris, and that is what is cut off during female genital mutilation. And also some girls, because of the healing and the fibrosis around that area, they are prone to having very difficult deliveries, and some women, they really struggle to have a baby. Some people even have infertility because of the infection that has happened during the first cutting, and it has spread up. So there is absolutely no benefit at all in doing all these things. And I know some people are saying, oh, I'm not going to cut anything, we're going to just press it down, we're going to press, we're going to apply powder, all sorts of things. Anything you do to the genitals of a girl, to modify is still classified under female genital mutilation. There are different types. We have type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. But all of them together, they are dangerous, they have offered no benefits, and they are actually associated with a lot of complications in the short term and in the long term for the girls. So why do we want to do it? And interestingly, it is women that keep perpetrating. The women are the gatekeepers. The men are not even so bothered about it. It is we women that are the ones that keep this culture going on, and we are the ones that are going to stop it. And I'm saying that if I, as a mom, as a pediatrician, and as a mother, decide not to cut my girl, decide not to do FGM for my girl, you as a mom listening to me, you decide not to do it, it will die with our generation. And that is actually the goal. That is why we have this day set apart, to create this awareness about female genital mutilation and to let mothers know it offers absolutely no benefit. Your girls not being promiscuous has nothing to do with the clitoris being cut. Even some of the most promiscuous girls could be girls that have had female genital mutilation. It has nothing to do with it. It has to do with our training our girls, sending them to school, giving them values, let them know their worth is not related to their genitals. Okay, so these are things that make girls to come out, showing them good role models. Not a matter of whether you cut something or you press down something. Nothing is itching them. Their genital is not teaching them. They're not because we need to teach our children sexuality education. We need to teach them how to know when you're ready and how to protect themselves from sexual predators, and how to protect themselves from sexually transmitted infections. These are the things we should be teaching our children, not cutting their genitals, not pressing it down, not applying powder. Just leave the girls' genitals alone. No to FGM. In places like United Kingdom, for example, it's a criminal offense, whether you did it in the past or you did it now, or you travel with your girl to do it, you come back into the UK, or somebody is reported, that person is going to jail for it. So, but beyond frightening us with jail and all that, the most important thing is the girl, our children, our girl child. We don't want to do anything that will harm them in the future. So I want to encourage all mothers who are listening to me or who are going to listen to this recording, say no to FGM. No to FGM. Let that thing die with our generation. Nigeria is a very, it's one of the countries we still have the highest rates of FGMs, just like some other countries in the world. We need to bring it down to zero. Okay. Nowadays, all our guests are getting educated, and so I don't expect any educated mother, any to start doing that. Even when we go to the villages, let's tell those of our family members, our community members in the villages, to let's educate them and let everybody learn to say zero tolerance to FGM. So I think I will stop that there, and then we'll pick up from next week. So, but if you have any questions, whether on FGM, whether on immunization, feel free to go to our Facebook group, Ask the Pediatrician Facebook group. You can put your questions there and we will try and answer them. We are there from Mondays to Saturdays, so there's always opportunity for you to ask your questions. And of course, these videos are always available, and we also try to share snippets of them in reels. I find that people find it easier to listen to 1 minute information than to listen to a 1 hour talk, but we'll try and share bits and pieces also, and feel free to help us share it. Let's keep passing this information to everyone. And also, if you have any question, you can always go to our Facebook group, put your questions there, be patient with us, and we'll try and answer them. Thank you so much for everyone for who have joined us, who have asked questions. So thank you, Major Evans. And who, as our promise to you on ATP, we will keep you updated whenever all the vaccines are available. We will hear from us. We will make so much noise. You won't miss it, so don't worry. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your evening. Just bye from me. Bye.